The Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen who had a dear little baby daughter born to them. They were very pleased indeed. "When she is christened, we will ask all the wise fairies to come for luck," they said. So they sent out their invitations. The christening day came, and all the wise fairies arrived. They were very pleased with the bonny little baby, and each bent over her in turn and waved their wand. "I will give her a sweet face," cried one. "And I will give her a kind heart," said another. "And I will give her happiness," cried a third. And suddenly the christening hall grew dark, and a cold wind blew through it. In at the door came a bad-tempered fairy. "Why didn't you ask me to the christening?" she stormed.
"Oh, I forgot. I'm so sorry," said the king, though that wasn't really quite true. He hadn't asked the bad-tempered fairy because he didn't think she would do any good to the baby at all.
"Oh, you forgot, did you?" said the fairy. "Well, I didn't forget, so I've come to see the baby, and I'll say this. When she's 15, she shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die." Then she swept out of the hall again and left everyone staring at one another in fright.
"Oh, fairies," cried the queen, "can't you break that wicked spell?"
"We can't break it," said a fairy, "but we can make it less cruel. When the princess grows to be 15, she shall not die if she pricks her finger, but fall into a sleep for 100 years, and everyone else in the palace with her."
Well, that was quite bad enough. The king was very upset indeed, until he thought of a splendid plan.
"I shall have every spinning wheel in the kingdom burnt," he said. "Then the princess can't prick her finger on the spindle of one."
So great bonfires were made all over the country, and everyone put spinning wheels into the flames and burnt them to ashes. And then the king's mind was at rest. All the gifts of the good fairies were seen in the princess as she grew up. She was healthy and happy, pretty and kind, and everyone loved her. She had never heard of the wicked spell cast on her by the bad fairy, so she didn't worry at all. Now, when her 15th birthday came, she had a great party and invited all of her friends. After tea, they began playing hide-and-seek up and down the palace. The princess made up her mind to hide so cleverly that no one would find her, so she ran right up to the very top of the palace and went into a tiny room in the roof. As she opened the door, she saw an old woman sitting in a corner.
"Oh," said the princess, I didn't know anyone was in here."
The old woman smiled at her. She was really the bad fairy, but the princess didn't know that. She was sitting spinning at a spinning wheel.
"What is that wheel?" asked the princess. "I've never seen one before." "Come and play with it," said the old woman.
The princess ran up, but alas, she pricked her finger on the spindle and immediately felt very sleepy.
She yawned. "I'm so sleepy."
Just at that minute, the king and queen ran in to find the princess. The old woman vanished with a mocking laugh, and the princess showed them her pricked finger. What to do there was. The king and queen hurried her downstairs and put her safely to bed, but hardly had they done that than she fell fast asleep, and nothing would wake her. Then one by one, the king and queen, the courtiers and the servants, the dogs and the cats, they all fell asleep too, and soon nothing could be heard in the palace but the sound of snoring from the head cook, who had gone to sleep in a most uncomfortable position. No sooner had everyone fallen asleep than a great thorn hedge grew quickly up all around the palace and completely hid it. No one could get through from the outside, and all the people in the kingdom were sad, for they knew that the bad fairy's spell had come true. As the years went by, brave princes tried to hack their way through the thorn hedge, but all to no use. They were pricked and torn so much that they went back defeated. When 100 years had gone by, another prince made up his mind to try. He took a trusty sword and made his way to the great thorn hedge. Neither scratches nor cuts made him give up, and at last he had hacked a way through right to the palace. Up the steps he went, staring in astonishment at all the sleeping servants. At last he came to where the pretty princess lay sleeping on her bed, with the king and queen beside her. She looked so very sweet that the prince bent down and gave her a gentle kiss. At once she awoke and smiled at him. The king and queen and everyone else stretched themselves, yawned and awoke too. What rejoicing there was then, and how the bells pealed out when the news was told! All the people came running up to the palace to say how glad they were to have a king and queen once again. And of course, the prince married the princess, and they lived happily ever